Habt ihr diese Funkgeräte gesehen? Die sind unglaublich.
Und der ganze Treibstoff. Woher bekommen Sie das?
Das ist doch Wahnsinn. So etwas habe ich noch nie gesehen.
February 20th, 1943. North of Kasserine Pass, Tunisia. German tank commanders would never forget the sight that morning. Sherman tanks moving with a precision that violated every principle of German armored doctrine. Across broken terrain, through smoke and dust, 5 Sherman tanks advanced on German positions with coordination that seemed impossible without visual signals. No flags, no flares, no dispatch riders running between vehicles. Yet each Sherman moved as part of a single organism, covering blind spots the others could not see, each crew fully aware of their comrades' positions. German Panzer IVs equipped with Ferg 5 radios struggled to maintain contact. Commanders shouted over static, their 10-watt transmitters barely reaching beyond a few hundred meters when tanks were moving. Many vehicles only had receivers, unable to report sightings or call for support. Meanwhile, Sherman crews operated with technology that the Germans could scarcely imagine. Frequency modulation radios, crystal-controlled precision, 25 watts of power, cutting through engine noise and battlefield chaos like a scalpel through paper. 8,000 miles from Detroit, the US had begun to forge the most decisive technological advantage of the war. Not in armor thickness or gun caliber, but in electromagnetic waves linking each tank into a cohesive network. The transformation began on July 22, 1941, when the U.S. Army standardized the SCR-508, SCR-528, and SCR-538 for all medium tanks. While German forces advanced through the Soviet Union relying on limited radio communication between command vehicles, 1941, American engineers at Galvin Manufacturing, later Motorola, perfected frequency modulation technology that rendered German radios obsolete. The team included Daniel E. Noble, who envisioned FM in combat vehicles, and Henrik Magnoski, the lead RF engineer who overcame the challenge of installing complex electronics in a moving, vibrating tank environment. Their creation, weighing 181 pounds, transformed every Sherman into a node in the first true battlefield network. The BC-604 transmitter output 25 watts, more than twice the FUG-5's 10 watts, operating on 20.0 to 27.9 MHz with 10 crystal-controlled channels. The dual BC-603 receivers allowed commanders to monitor multiple frequencies simultaneously, a capability that proved decisive in combat. Frequency modulation eliminated static and interference that plagued German AM systems. Every spark plug, every motor, every track movement in German tanks generated noise, while Shermans communicated clearly even under artillery fire. November 8, 1942. Operation Torch. The 2nd Armored Division landed near Safi and Fidala with SCR-508 radios ready to prove their superiority. The Africa Corps, Germany's most experienced armored force, suffered under strict communication limitations. Only 1 or 2 tanks per platoon could transmit and receive. The rest had receivers alone. German platoons relied on a rigid chain of command. When command tanks were destroyed, entire units lost cohesion. American tanks, however, could all perform command functions, giving them unprecedented tactical flexibility. February 14th to 24th, 1943, Kasserine Pass. Though tactically a German victory, the battle exposed the Americans' invisible advantage. Scattered elements of the 1st Armored Division coordinated attacks across 50 miles. Crews who had never met coordinated maneuvers warned each other of threats and called artillery with crystal-clear FM communications. German intelligence noted the clarity, but attributed it to training, missing the technological gap. By September 1943, in Italy, mountainous terrain should have nullified radio advantages. Instead, Shermans thrived while German radios failed entirely. Frequency modulation overcame multipath interference in valleys, allowing tanks separated by ridgelines to coordinate attacks with a precision German doctrine considered impossible without visual signals. June 6, 1944, Normandy. Shermans maintained contact with naval artillery support, impossible for German forces. Initially, tank radios were incompatible with infantry SCR 300 units, operating on 40 to 48 MHz. Field improvisations like EE-8 field telephones, mounted on tank exteriors, solved the problem, and by Operation Cobra, over 200 Sherman tanks operated as a unified network. German defenders faced tanks that seemed omniscient. Artillery strikes arrived within minutes, and threats reported miles away were met instantly. The strategic contrast was stark. Panzer divisions lacked full communication. Most tanks relied on visual signals within 100 meters. Few functioning radios suffered interference, and even when present, German doctrine failed to utilize them fully. Heinz Guderian, architect of Blitzkrieg, had stressed radios since the 1920s, but by 1943, production shortages rendered doctrine impractical. Only a fraction of German tanks had transceivers, while all American Shermans had FM radios. March 1945, Remagen Bridge. American communication superiority enabled rapid exploitation. When the 9th Armored Division found the bridge intact, radio reports reached headquarters in minutes. German forces, reliant on destroyed telephone lines, could not react. Tanks from multiple battalions coordinated seamlessly, and counterattacks arrived piecemeal. April 1945, encirclement of the Ruhr Pocket. American forces executed complex double envelopment entirely through radio networks. 325,000 German troops trapped, unable to communicate. American air controllers targeted German communications systematically. Field Marshal Walter Model's final messages reflected chaos. No contact with adjacent units, no command structure. Psychologically, the impact was profound. American crews fought knowing they were never alone. German crews fought isolated. Otto Carius, a prominent panzer commander, noted the difficulty of coordination but did not fully grasp the technological gap. Across France and Germany, Sherman crews operated as a networked entity, while German tanks remained fragmented individuals. Production statistics underscore the achievement. Over 50,000 SCR-508 radios produced, everyone installed in 49,324 Shermans, 100% deployment. German FUG-5 transceivers, 6,000 units for 12,000 medium tanks. Full deployment 20%. Transmission power 25 watts versus 10 watts. Range moving 7 miles versus 0.5 to 1 mile. Frequency stability plus or minus 0.01% versus plus or minus 1%. The lesson is timeless. The SCR-508 radio turned the Sherman from a medium tank into a node in a networked weapons system. Coordination and connection outweighed armor or firepower. Across North Africa, Italy, Normandy, and Germany, American communication superiority determined the battlefield. The Wehrmacht discovered too late that every Sherman was part of an unprecedented network, proving that in modern warfare, connection defeats isolation and information supremacy eclipses platform superiority. Every Sherman tank wasn't just a vehicle, It was a node in the first true battlefield network. Radio technology allowed American crews to communicate instantly, coordinate attacks over miles, and respond faster than any German unit could. While Germans relied on isolated tanks and visual signals, Americans fought as a connected force. The war's outcome, in armored engagements, often came down to who could communicate, coordinate, and control the battlefield,